Hi, thank you so much for attending the Securing ASEAN episode 2. My name is Ian Lim. I am the Field Chief Security Officer for Palo Alto Networks. And today we have an exciting program for you. We have, on our panel, Dr. Kitti Kosavisutte, and he's from the Bangkok Bank. He's a CISO. He's got over 20 years of experience in IT and 10 years focusing on information security. He's also won the CISO ASEAN Award in 2012 and has spearheaded adoption of ISO standards across the region. Also with us today is Mark Frogoso. He is from an amazing fintech out of the Philippines, Gcash, very seasoned, well-rounded information security professional and practitioner with huge experiences in the banking finance world. And so we have the privilege of being able to see the perspective from a very established FSI, as well as the counterpoints from a fintech. And so without much further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. As all of you know, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of companies recognize the importance of technology. Workers are now borderless; they're all working from home. Technology has stepped up, especially in the world of fintech, because retail all had to go, towards technology to basically direct the ability to be viable in this environment. Big banks are also looking at going towards giving the consumers what they want, and that means being open to allowing and working and partnering with fintechs as well. So it's a very, very interesting time for us here. And as we go forward to a post-pandemic state, would definitely have cybersecurity in mind, because all these new technology, cloud, open APIs, IoT, right? All these capabilities are actually bringing together a much, much more broader attack surface. And our hackers are getting a lot more sophisticated as well. And so hopefully this panel will be very illuminating for you as we talk about how an established FSI and how a fintech handles the new landscape, the new threat landscape. All right. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Dr. Kitti. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
Morning,
everyone.
Great. I'm going to start with the first panel question for you. I would like to hear from both of you. How is the cybersecurity strategy, within your organization, enabling the business at this time? Dr. Kitti, would you kind of like to take a first hit at that?
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate having me in the very exciting topic today. As we know, the pandemic situations forced a lot of organizations change the way we work and introduce the new type of threat, and also the very important is the new type of threat. The education awareness is all together. We need to raise the bar very quickly, and the situation is very, very, very tight in terms of timing, and actually the cost, not only the money, but it's the process, and we need to close the gap quick enough. So basically when we deal with the cyber threat, that is the evolving way of techniques that hackers use, and may I share some pictures, some slide. I divide into 4 categories. Okay. The first one, we know what the danger, what is the threat are. So we try to control. We set the standard control in the organization. This is the easy part. We used to it. We have a lot of tools, we have a lot of process, and we take control of this one. That is okay. But the problem is another 4 categories, which is we know that someone in the organization don't know about it. So we need to communicate. We need to build awareness, especially the work from home situations. A lot of people not get used to how they work from home, how to maintain, how to keep the information secure. So we need to build awareness. Going to the top right, this is the hard part because most of the time we don't know what we don't know because it's a new threat. Hacker try to innovate, have the new things, try to penetrate us. So this area we need to incorporate with other organizations, external organizations, because we want to share and we want to avoid the repeated situations. It may be the first hit to some organization, but if we share, it's going to reduce the overall damage.
Great. No, absolutely agree. Yeah, it inoculates one company or one organization knows about it. They share it across the board, and we saw this with SolarWinds. You know how Microsoft and FireEye immediately shared, and the rest of the world were able to kind of counter that. No, I absolutely see what you're saying.
Yeah, that is very important because we deal with this situation many times, 0-day and new type of attack, and on the top left. This situation is someone may don't know that actually they know, but they not actually I don't know, recall or confidentially implement or okay. So we need to empower. We need to bring out their potential because I believe everyone have potential to learn to do many things. But some in some situations, it's like the pandemic situations. We need to empower our people to bring up their potential in order to help organization protect from the cyber threat.
You know, that last point you made mentioned a lot of organizations think that cybersecurity is the responsibility of the cybersecurity team alone, right? Yeah. And that's not true. You know, I think the one thing that we you know, to your point, is that we need to communicate to the broader audience and you know, not only people within our company, but the third parties, et cetera, that it's everybody's responsibility. This is something that is not done by one specific team, but everybody plays a role in being able to build that defense in depth, right? Starting with, you know, the end users. No, great. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge here.
Yeah.
Mark, you know, fintech world is such a fast-paced, moving world. And you know, and oftentimes when you guys are in the middle of building the company, cybersecurity is often, you know, seen as potentially a blocker, right? How do you, in your organization, build up cybersecurity as, you know, enabler? What have you guys done in your sector for Gcash?
Yeah, I think for us, it pretty much boils down to how your cybersecurity strategy contribute to the balance scorecard of your organization. I guess I'm going through that, you know. So we have financial, right? Financial operations. We have customer and learning and growth or development. So for financial, definitely our cybersecurity strategy enables financial protection. I think we all know this, right? One of which, as a classic example of that is, you know, we ensure that we're not in a position of having like a major breach or security incident that warrants like a regulatory notification and or like penalties and fines, right? So we enable financial protection on that front. The other one is when we implement all of our our strategies through our projects, we want to make sure that all of those projects are executed timely, definitely, but also within budget, right? And on top of that, we make sure that when we deal with our suppliers or our vendors, right, or with our partners, we perform enhanced due diligence by making sure that we have the right commercials definitely in place, right? We have the best discounts, we have the right commercials, but also in the contracts, we have enough protection
Perfect.
from the contracts. The other one is really from the operations perspective. I think one of really is process efficiencies, right? When we do implement things within the organization, we want to make sure that it does not add additional overhead across the business unit. And I can tell you this: we have shut down a lot of those things lately. So, and also we want to make sure that we contribute to the service availability and quality, right? So, for example, if your products and services, your omnichannels, if you will, we want to make sure that all of those are always up, most of the time, right? And so we protect against cyber attacks like denial of service attacks and even like hacking attempts. And and lastly, I think one of the things that I can see is we also want to make sure that we launch the best products and services out there. And how do we do that? We make sure that it's secure, right? So, yeah. So the other aspect is customer. From your balanced scorecard. Well, our employees is also our customer. I mean, we want to make sure we protect them. We want to make sure that they are pretty much aware of the threat landscape and all of these new cyber risks, if you will. Extending from our customers, we also protect. Extending from our employees, we protect our customers. Meaning, so because right now in the fintech organization, specifically in our local landscape here, we are now seeing that there's a shift of attack. I mean, we are being targeted definitely, but there's a shift of attack towards our customers, right? And so we are protecting our customers by making sure that we put all of those like information campaigns about fraud, about security. How do you secure yourselves? How do you secure your information? But at the same time, we also like through threat intelligence, we are scanning like the underground web, if you will, and see, do we have customers there? Do we have customers' information there? And say, if there is, we want to notify that customer ahead of time, right?
Very proactive, yeah.
Very proactive, right? So, and the other one is also brand protection, right? So we want to protect our brand in a way that we proactively, find phishing sites that looks like Gcash, right? And then even also on top of that, we also look at, are there other sites or like pages out there that are carrying the Gcash logo, right? And say with a malicious intent. So we take all of those down, right? Great. So from a customer perspective, I think that last but not least, well, the last aspect of your BSc would be about your internal learning and growth. So people is also key. Is one of my, as part of my cybersecurity strategy. And so my people, your cybersecurity people, basically I want them to take more the trainings that they needed, certifications that they needed for them to be effective in their role, right? And we do that also as part of their personal goals, like on an annual basis. Well, I want to make sure that they have enough trainings. I want to make sure that we push them for getting more certifications. Like in addition to this, and we know this, right? We have like, I don't know, some companies or organizations call this like meeting fatigue or Zoom fatigue. If you guys are using Zoom, right? Because there's no boundary now between work and so life. even night, so even nighttime, I mean, people are still working, right? Because they're still pretty much in their home. So I guess for us, we also do employee engagement programs, right? So engagement programs on a month-on-month, or we also recognize employees on a job well done on a month-on-month. So I think from a holistic view, that's how I look at it, how my cybersecurity strategy enables the business holistically. So yeah.
No, I mean, oftentimes we hear that humans are the weakest link, right? And, both Dr. Kitti and yourself illustrated the point that, that's one way to look at it, but human beings can also be your strongest defense, right? It is also the employees and the consumers that pick up the phone and say, hey, look, this doesn't look right, right? And immediately, as the cybersecurity organization, we could quickly react to it. So I think it's a matter of, what you guys both say, how we invest, in not only the technology and the capabilities, but in our people, in order to bring up that security posture. And the other thing I really like what you said, Mark, is that, I often have this analogy, right? That, we are living in this brand new world where technology is such a major enabler of business. And it's like this big, fast electric car, if you will, right? And if you don't have the safety features, if you don't have the seat belts, right? If you don't have all the capabilities that we now have in a really good, intelligent electric car, you can't go that fast. You're bound to crash. And in the case of fintech, when you're building up a brand and a reputation, that crash could be very, very significant for you. And so, I'm glad that, you have a comprehensive program balancing, all the various needs in the cybersecurity space and just really looking at cybersecurity as an enabling capability and not like, the good old, police, right, of IT. Oh, yeah, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, great. Thank you so much for that. In our kind of second question, I wanted to direct it more, individually to you guys. So, in a traditional, in a financial institution that's well established, like the Bangkok Bank, Dr. Kitti, I'm sure that you guys grew up in the on-prem world, and now with the revolution of cloud, right? There's all this idea of moving more and more workloads to the cloud. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that journey that you guys are taking into the cloud and what cybersecurity implications you're dealing with in that area?
This topic is very important because we can see that a lot of organizations moving the service on cloud. If we look back at the beginning stage when cloud computing has been introduced, people is struggling and a lot of discussion about what should be migrate to cloud and what cloud should help. At the beginning, a lot of people may see, oh, cloud is fast, cheap, but actually it's not very. It's different in nature.
Illusion.
It's like a cloud, but
yeah,
actually it's different. Cloud and ground is different.
Yes.
Actually, it's different in nature. There's a good thing when we move to cloud, and what we need to do and educate, and a lot of discussion within the organization in terms of strategies is very important because we don't cheap it good, but sometimes we need to prepare. We need to not only upskill. Sometimes we need to reskill a lot when we move to cloud because of the shared responsibilities when we move to cloud. This is very key concept, shared responsibilities that make people move and reskill our people to manage third parties. It's going to be fall into the third parties risk management categories. We need to understand that, and we need to get the benefit from cloud computing. Why we need to reskill, educate, and try to look at what should be moved to. And in case we get used to the BCP, BCM, business continuity management, it like a totally change the plan that we have when we move to cloud. For example, if we deal with the big cloud providers, cloud service providers, sometimes um, it should not be, we cannot customize the solution. We need to follow both technology itself, architecture itself, but also the agreements. So we need to manage how we can to manage, because a big cloud service provider won't change, won't custom the architecture. That we need to look at how we can to move, and then the business continuity plan, especially when we move the business process and also data into cloud. The exit strategy become the another very important things. Exit strategy, sometimes we just move forward, but we don't have the plan B. We need to think about plan B. This is all together that we need to think in terms of corporate strategy when we consider cloud, and what process, what business functions we need to move to cloud, and we need to prepare for.
And make sure to avoid the lock-in factor, and a lot of companies are looking at kind of a multi-cloud vendor, right? So that they're not locked into one. No, I hear you loud and clear. Right. What about cybersecurity? Where how is cybersecurity different for your on-premise world versus your cloud world? And maybe even talk a little bit about the idea that you are probably in a hybrid environment with one feed in data centers and another feed in cloud. Talk a little bit about how you guys are addressing those challenges.
Okay. If we look at from the security control difference between on-premise and cloud, we may see the concept of what need to be controlled in terms of security. But when we look at into the detailed technologies, a lot of difference. We need to build the skill of the people. When we talk about, firewall is firewall, but another technology, most of them are like container virtualization. The tools on cloud are different.
Serverless, you name it,
Right. So we need to again reskill on the technical people as well. The control concept, we have the security control library, but when we look it into the technology itself, it's different. Even though we need this type of control, the control on cloud, the tools are different. So we try to build the skill, but sometimes because of the architecture itself is not much that we can change. We need to manage all the control and try to build, and then if we can have the central management. But in our organizations, definitely we go for hybrid. We have something on premise, we have something on cloud. We need to have the view of integrations in order to link between what's happening on cloud and what are on premise, and then integrate together. So this is the key, that we need to integrate visibility both cloud and on premise in terms of security as well.
And skill up. I know. So we definitely have a lot of experience talking to various FSI and other companies, right? And the visibility, is key to be able to see, both on-prem and cloud, because you can't protect what you can't see. The other thing is we also are definitely, helping them with solutions of creating more of a platform that's able to, be implemented both on-prem as well as in the cloud. So it's one policy as opposed to disparate policies, and makes it hard, right? Because you guys are under a lot of regulatory pressures to have, a single pane of glass to be able to see both the on-prem and the cloud stuff. And even in the cloud stuff, to your point, right? There's kind of the old lift and shift, stage one cloud, basically you're building your 3-tier architecture back in the cloud again. And then, you go to container, capabilities, and then down the road, you go to serverless infrastructure as code, right? Are you able to have a capability that gives you the same, protection over those, over those different types, of progression? So yeah, no, we completely, it's a huge challenge, which is why, Mark is here to talk a little bit about, how, a fintech, I'm not sure, Mark, were you guys cloud native? How did you guys grow up in the cloud, and how is that really different in terms of your ability to put the security capabilities upfront in the cloud, and do you also have on-premise concerns? But let's talk a little bit about how you guys secure the cloud. I mean, obviously, you guys have so much transactions and so much consumers on that cloud.
Yeah, so I think for us, we started, I think we're like mixed. It's a hybrid. So this company is actually a business unit in a telco mother company, but it grew bigger in a way that it went on its own and is now being heavily regulated by the central bank. So there's on-prem footprint. So we still have that data center in there, and we have 2 cloud platforms right now, right? So AWS and Alibaba. But in with regards to how do we make sure that security is also there? I mean, with the hybrid technology technology infrastructure that we have, and I think you nailed it well there, Ian. It's really number one, visibility, right? The other aspect is also mentioned by Dr. Kitti, is about the upskilling of people, right? Because that's really very key. When you look, what are the top cloud security concerns? I would definitely tell you that it's most of which is misconfiguration, right? So I think nearly all successful cyber attacks is due to misconfiguration, and so, and I guess the next question there: why does it happen, and why do we have misconfigurations in place? And number one, basically, reason is lack of inexperienced users. Inexperienced users. I mean, there are, and also like cloud is really programmable, if you will, right? Meaning if you employ like your CI/CDs, you have like an agile team, they can spin up workloads in the cloud using script or code. They don't even log into the cloud console and say, let me spin up an EC2 or ECS instance. No, they use a script to actually just spin any workloads in there. And so because of that, because of inexperienced users, because of the agile ways of doing things like the DevOps, DevSecOps, we have these kind of issues, right? And so for us, being aware of that issue, we want to make sure we have a solution for that. And so it's part of our cybersecurity strategy. And I think we're kind of like doing that now. Yeah. So basically, once you have visibility across all of those misconfigurations, all of those things, then you get to then have put in a process in place and fix all of those things, right? All of those issues. So yeah.
No, it's a life cycle, right? And that's a
really
key point. We learned that, even in our traditional on-premise, that back in the day we've got the waterfall model and it's the SDLC. But in the agile world, it's a much bigger life cycle. I think definitely there's the configuration, like Dr. Kitti was saying, and what you're saying, misconfiguration and configuration of the cloud. You've got to be able to scan that and see if there are any misconfiguration. And then as guys are developing the code, are you giving them the capability? You guys talk a lot about upskilling. Are we giving them the capability to be able to check their code, right? They're pulling stuff down from, GitHub, etc. Are we scanning those libraries to see if there are any bad malware or bad code in there? And as we go into deployment, right? Are we deploying it correctly? Do we have any runtime protection? Are we scanning this cloud capability from outside in and from inside out? I think it's kind of a full life cycle, but not only full life cycle, but a capability to give you a way to look at different clouds. You mentioned that you guys have Alibaba and AWS. right? If you're just leaning on the Amazon and the Alibaba tools, you're going to have two lenses to look at things. Are you able to kind of harmonize it and look at both clouds in the same way, apply policies and scanning in the same way? I think those things are key. And then lastly, multi-stack, right? So I spoke about it earlier. Not only are you dealing with kind of infrastructure as a service, but you're dealing with now infrastructure as a code. You're doing different things, and you guys are evolving in the cloud. Do you have the capability to kind of keep up with that from a cybersecurity perspective? No, great insight, and thank you. One question that bridges the both of you, right? So there's this a lot of discussion in FSI around open banking and APIs. The fintechs are relying heavily on these APIs to be able to provide their consumers with capabilities, right? With new products, et cetera, and the FSI world is really looking at these APIs as a way of meeting consumer demands and really to be on the forefront of products and services. So Dr. Kitti, is Bangkok Bank opening up their APIs to fintechs to use? And if so, what is your strategy to kind of secure that?
Currently, we are focusing on open the API for business partner first, not open publicly, because we now, as the banking sector in Thailand as well, we try to set the standard for API.
Right.
Working together with the regulator, Bank of Thailand. That is important because we're going to ensure that the API security standard is in place before we open up. As a business, we focus on opening up the API for the business partner first. That is the starting point until we have the proper API security standard for banking sector in Thailand.
Okay, great. And even for business partners, so those are established business partners, right? And that you already have a trust relationship with. Is that what you're talking about?
Should we include fintech as well? But that
okay.
is what we trusted partner. Okay, trusted partner.
That's great. So Mark, on your end, you guys are the consumers, of these APIs that FSI open to you. I guess what advice do you have in terms of, are they assessing your security as well in order for them to share the API? Can you give the listeners, an idea of both, how you guys secure your API and what does the API ecosystem look like for you?
Yeah, sure. So, I think this has something to do still with your overall like third-party management program, right? As part of that as a subset of that is really the security aspect, the security assessment, if you will. So if the API definitely, as I see it, is an integration point, right? For you to be able to communicate with a trusted party, be that in an FSI or a trusted merchant or another supplier, if you will, that provides you guys services. So for us, it's more about like we perform security assessment, right? Firstly, for that particular third party, because this is an integration point, we want to make sure that we scan the API for any vulnerabilities, definitely, because that's facing the net. Yep. The other one, not just the layer 7, if you will, but also which server is it hosted, meaning the infrastructure level. So we scan both the infra and the API and see if there are some vulnerabilities in there, and we then highlight it, right, to the third party. And same goes with them, right? They do also, if we're then the consumer or the third party from a third, from that perspective, they also do that with us. But since we're like more proactive, we always gonna tell them, okay, here's the result of the latest scans already. We have that in place, and tell them we have low to informational type of issues, and so you do want to mandate fixing the low issues, right? So
right.
I think we're on that, we're on that level. The other one, again, going back to the really basics of things, visibility, right? You need to know what APIs you got you have out there that's really internet facing.
Yes.
Because if you may never know if there is one that's not in your list and you have not scanned previously or never scanned really, right? So, and this is where close working relationships with, with security and IT comes into play, right? Because if you have that developed, then pretty much you didn't want the IT team to recertify, say, an inventory list of all of the APIs that's fronting the net or the internet, right? Because I don't know if there's such a tool out there that can actually automate, that says automate getting an API inventory near real time. I don't know if there's such a tool out there. It's really about there is. Wow. Okay. If there's that's a solution that
we'll
that's,
talk later.
So that's good. If there's such a solution, then definitely the manual process of recertification, like of an inventory, would be just put aside, right? So
yeah.
And so really visibility is key, and security assessment is key. So security assessment, be it like a procedural and or like in addition to security vulnerability scanning and assessments. So that's yeah.
No, that's huge. And again, continuous validation of that API, right? It's not just that you build it once, you look at it once, and then you leave it alone, because there's always drift from what it was initially created for and what it is now. So that continuous validation is key, which actually brings us to the topic of zero trust. I'm sure you guys are both familiar with that paradigm. And I know that both many countries have adopted, from a mandate perspective, the idea that zero trust as a paradigm is important. And this is really to meet the fact that our existing paradigm of creating perimeter and creating trusted and untrusted zone is not enough. As evidenced by all the hacks that's been going on around supply chain, around ransomware. And so, this zero trust model of continuous validation, of digital interactions become a very, very key concept and key strategy for a lot of companies. And it's one that us as Palo Alto Networks embrace, and we build our capabilities towards that goal. Dr. Kitti, is Bangkok Bank, implementing zero trust or starting to adopt that idea, and if so, can you give us some examples of how that is done?
Yeah, very important. Zero trust concept is very important. Actually, not only the zero trust for people, but with that is a zero trust for like an API, a zero trust for device, for programming. When we look at zero trust, I think authorization become the most critical part. That is the access right that we need to revise, and we need to set it properly. As the previous example, when we talk about API, when we open the API, authentication or the control is important, but once it passed to all the process of control, the protection or the protections, authorization become important, because each customer may connect to the same API, but different authority, different authorization profile that they can have. In some API, they try to improve the performance. That is the specification that they need to make it fast enough, get the information, not back and forth many times in order to get information. So they try to improve performance, but it come back into the very basic part, which is the authorizations. We need to control it very, very good in terms of protecting our the data resources. The same as zero trust, that is on another end is people when they try to get into the organization. So this is a good time when we have the people work from home. We ask them to revise their exit profile. That means that is a good time to let them think of what system and why they need to access to the system. Thanks to COVID.
Yes.
As the big organization, we have this. I think most of the organization have this kind of things because we give control, give the access right to people, and business growing, so it change all the times.
Right.
So this is the time to ask. So I have the proper like a form or the process to let them think and let manager approve, so manager can see what they can access to.
Right.
So it helped us a lot in terms of building, revisiting the access right of all the people who ask for work from home.
And then get rid of all the legacy access rights, that they've carried through the years, right? And through the different roles that they have. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that is a time to get rid of the unnecessary access. Oh, okay, they may think, oh, okay, I have this, but I don't need it anymore.
Right.
So we can do minimize those risks as well. Yeah, this is what we do in this situation. Yes.
No, there's actually a new concept now, that we're seeing called just-in-time access, and this is especially evident in the cloud because a lot of cloud gives you API to provision access, in addition to provisioning users. So basically, it's like a firewall ID. So when a privileged access is needed, that's at that time you provision it, and when they're done with it, you deprovision it. So literally, there'll be a lot less legacy access, being implemented. It's a concept called just-in-time access that's starting to, we're starting to see some of that traction going on. But yes, privileged access, is a foundational. Least privilege is a foundational aspect of zero trust. Thank you, Dr. Kitti. How about you, Mark? You guys are again fintech moving fast. Is zero trust a mandate? Is zero trust a principle that's adopted in the fintech in your fintech world?
Yeah, I think it is, but it's not it's not the product what other guys are selling out there. But yeah, I think every security professional out there, we all agree that it isn't really a product or a solution. It's really it's really those principles. And if you're a real security person, you already know these principles in your DNA day one. I mean, before they term that as or a buzzword as zero trust, you already know these principles, right? I think one thing I think in the principles, one thing that's quite interesting for me, it's the assume breach principle, and so that's really what makes it interesting or challenging, if I can say that, for our organization, right? I think three key things. Number one, really, and I'm starting to look like a broken record here. Visibility, right? I mean, we want to.
It is true, though. It's spot on. Visibility is key.
It's really one of the core things we put and we focus on. And we want really near. I always term this near real time, because you probably don't have that real time, right? Well, I want near real time inventory of all of our technology assets, and not just technology assets, though, right? I mean, even non-tech assets like your third-party vendors, your suppliers, your merchants, right? Even the business and the operations within, even the people. I want to know all of them. What's their role? What's their function? Right? How are so? But right. I mean, zooming on technology, we want telemetry across all hosts and other critical infrastructure, and really to monitor for anything unusual, be it a traffic or an event. Right. So that's number one. Number two is it is supposed to be AAA, but now I'm just gonna term it AA. That's authentication and authorization. I mean, Dr. Kitti actually mentioned authorization aspect. So for me, it's authentication and authorization. For us, a simple example of that would be like, we want to allow like someone access to our IT network, given that they're working remote, we are authenticating and authorizing both the user and the device. It's not just the user, but also the device, right? For all of our internet-facing endpoints or systems, we employ multi-factor authentication, right? but actually even internal. When you look at internal systems and you see, oops, these are like quote unquote critical ones, right?
Mhm.
We want to probably want to employ MFA on those systems as well, right?
Yep.
So the third aspect is, and this is where the assume breach comes along, right? We strive to be resilient as an organization, right? I mean, we all know this. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when are you going to be breached, or you probably don't know you're breached already. You know, so and that's why BCP and DRP, right? Business continuity programs and disaster recovery programs are key programs. That's really continually being improved and exercised in our organization.
Yeah.
So yeah, those three things. That's really some few examples of how we employed zero trust within our organization. So.
No, and let me add that, one of the biggest thing that you can do, again, 15 years as a CISO, one of the key things that we did was we practiced breach, assume breach, right? And so, we got the legal team together, we got the PR team together. We're not going to be caught by surprise. So we do a drill down tabletop exercise, on a very regular basis, bring all the key business divisions together, the key IT folks, legal, PR, etc., and say, look, what happens in this scenario, right? What we're going to do, because to your point, it's not if, it's when, right? So you should be prepared. I think that's key. And a third A I will add to your authentication and authorization is anomaly. So anomaly detection is the cornerstone of zero trust, because the idea here is that, one of the failures of zero trust is that once we've authenticated them, once we've authorized them, right, then we let them move across our environment freely. Okay, and that movement, that lateral movement, is what's causing us a lot of problem, because we don't validate them anymore. So anomaly detection, detecting that they're behaving in the way that they should be behaving, and when they're not, that we have the SOC team come and address that, I think is absolutely pivotal to a zero trust model. Great insight from both of you. Thank you so much. Time is flying past us. I think we're at the top of the hour here. Very, very engaging discussion with both of you, and great insights, as noted. Any last words for our listeners, who are, obviously in the same situation that we are, dealing with kind of a pandemic, post-pandemic world, dealing with cloud, dealing with IoT, et cetera, and trying to bring cybersecurity to the forefront. Dr. Kitti, any parting words for your listeners?
I think if you ask for one keyword, I would pick the empower. Empowering people in order to get the potential from them. We believe in potential, and then that will help back to secure entire organization. Thank you.
No, great. Thank you so much for that. And just kind of add to that, we at Palo Networks, we're huge on the empowerment. We actually have a whole division dedicated to educating kids from 5 years old on about digital security. We've got lots of programs to train our customers as well as our non-customers. So to your point, empowering people to really think about cybersecurity, in a right way, both in terms of accountability as well as in terms of know-how, right? How to actually do it is huge. Thank you so much, Dr. Kitti. Mark, any wise words?
I'm not sure if I'm good at wise words, but really, to be honest, as a CISO, right, I think it's really important for you to look things on a very big picture, right? I mean, on the strategic view,
Yes,
and also put continuous improvement as part of that. The other key aspect that I see now, and it's really because it's timely because of the pandemic, is keep your people engaged. I mean,
yes.
People. I always, I think I've heard this in some of the organizations, and that are happy employees means happy customers, right? That translates to happy customers in a way. So
Great.
I mean, keep people engaged so that they also, they pretty much perform the best work out there, and in turn, you get you get the best customer. That your customers will be happy, and so it's good for business. So that's where, yep. I think that's few advice there.
Well, folks out there, you heard it, right? Empower your people, invest in them, equip them, to do a good job. That I think, we all lean and look so hard at technology, and technology is very important, right? But having the right people, having the skilled people, and giving them a tool set that is easy to learn and that's comprehensive, that works well together. All those add up to pushing that cybersecurity posture forward in this post-pandemic world that we live in. Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.